This is an update to the story about Matthew Nicol, who was murdered March 3rd, 2021 in Merritt Island. It seems that 5 guys dressed up in tactical gear went to rob him of drugs and money. They weren't targeting him, they were targeting his roommate. And the good thing is that all 6 have all been arrested. And so here's a sort of a breakdown of what happened. Well, the police gave public statements to the press and let them know what was going on. But boy, down in the comments section of this article, there were people that knew more than the cops, and they were freaking livid about the murder of this young man, especially because they killed his dog too. And so I had to go read more about him, who he was. And they said he was a real happy-go-lucky kind of guy. Probably got wrapped up into making a couple bucks off of selling weed and. Anyway, it probably made him an easy target because he just didn't fit that thug, drug dealer, tough guy persona. And so it's really sad to hear what happened, that he got involved in it, and then eventually these scumbags went and murdered him to try and make a buck. By the beginning of May 2021, this David Foreman-Taylor had been arrested. Somebody had been under arrest for dog fighting, had a bait dog under a covered patio, and they gave up this David Foreman-Taylor. They knew of his involvement in this murder, robbery stint. 2 days after Foreman-Taylor's arrest came the arrest of Brian Vogel, and on the same day was the arrest of Chase Harrison, pictured here. It only gets worse for Harrison and Vogel. I'll explain that later. The next arrest came by way of the U.S. Marshals Service up in Tennessee. That's where Cory Cabaniss had ran and hid, thinking he could get away with it, but nope. The next arrest was Anthony Davila. He went and hid in Georgia, but his family talked him into giving himself up, and he voluntarily came back to Brevard. Next came the arrest of Tyler Grafing on May 13th, 2022. The strange thing is investigators knew about Tyler Grafing for well over a year. See, on Cory Cabaniss' affidavit for arrest warrant, on page 8, paragraph 5, David Foreman-Taylor clearly outlines that Tyler Grafing drove the Cadillac Escalade, parked it at the Circle K off a Hall Road while they went and robbed and murdered Matthew. I don't know why it took that long, but at least they got him. Let's take a closer look at these guys. David Foreman-Taylor, the first to be arrested, is 23 years old at 5'7", 210 pounds. Brian Vogel's 29 years old, the oldest at 6'2", 200 pounds. Chase Harrison is 28 years old, 5'11", 220 pounds. Cory Cabaniss is 25 years old, 6'2", 200 pounds. Anthony Davila is 23 years old, 5'10", 180 pounds. Tyler Grafing is 21 years old, and he's 5'10", 150 pounds. So there's no real way to see how everybody met, but I did get an insight in it from Tyler Grafing. There's a statement that he made to police, and it's public records. Anyway, so I'm at the clerk of the court, and you just put Tyler Grafing, change the date to 2000, and today's date, and hit search. And so here's the last thing, the burglary of a dwelling. That was the date that it happened, or when he was charged. I don't know why it took so long, but see, this is the page count, and these files are not sealed or pending or any of that confidential stuff. You go down here, this one that says 116, the transcript. If you click on that, there's a whole wealth of information. You can see how they kind of got to know each other and all sorts of stuff. And so this is it. It pops up, and it's when he's getting investigated. So there's a wealth of information. I'll go over it with you real quick. From Tyler's records, we know that David Foreman-Taylor and Brian Vogel were roommates living in Cocoa. From Tyler's deposition, he goes on to explain how he met everybody. He knew Anthony Davila, Tony Davila. He met him about 6 to 8 months before that. David Foreman-Taylor, he knew him from high school. Chase, he met from out in the clubs. Cory from fires and outdoor stuff. And Brian, he didn't know. We know that Vogel and Chase Harrison were trafficking cocaine throughout Brevard. There's a timeline of events that show what happened with them. March 3rd is when Matthew Nicol was murdered. We know that the police were investigating them for trafficking cocaine throughout Brevard, and that they were arrested on May 19th for trafficking cocaine. And so they're sitting in jail, $100,000 bond. Matthew was murdered, a month or so earlier. And then on June 1st, David Foreman-Taylor is arrested, subsequently gives up both of those guys, and Harrison and Vogel They're still in jail. Now they get arrested for murdering Matthew, killing his dog, and home invasion. What scumbags. I went digging around the clerk of the court site and other places looking for some bad stuff on these guys. Really didn't find too much. Found a little. Well, the only Facebook stuff I found was Brian Vogel with this post of painting a picture of he's 999% mean, and he was proud of it. Also this 365% asshole, and he's going to be welcome to hell. Well, it's only going to get worse there, deeper and hotter for you, Brian. Suck it up, Buttercup. After I got those two posts by Brian Vogel, I went back the next day, and I had seen Chase Harrison's account too. He just looked like a construction guy, and immediately that next day, Chase Harrison and Brian Vogel's stuff were down. I suspect that their attorneys had told them to pull everything down. Looking for other Facebook accounts, I found Cory Cabanniss's. His is still up and running. You can see it. Look at it. Tyler Grafing, same thing. His is still up and running. Just shows them sort of outdoor guys, okay to be around with. Anthony Davila, there's nothing. I didn't see an account. As far as David Foreman-Taylor, I didn't find his immediately, so I thought he didn't have a page, but while digging through Tyler Grafing's testimony he gave to investigators, he referred to David Foreman-Taylor as David Foreman. So I went to Facebook, and there it is. So I went through David Foreman's stuff, and lo and behold, look at this. I see a reference on one of his posts to Tony Davila. So Tony Davila did have an account, but he probably deleted it. Everything Grafing said to investigators is online. Let's take a look at some of it. So Grafing admits meeting Matt at bars and strip clubs and hanging out with him at parties and stuff like that, quote unquote. And then he bought some pot a couple times around December, January of late 2020, early 2021. So next we see that Grafing says that he bought cocaine from Matt from him one time, and that he re-ups from some guy in Tampa. Tyler goes on to say that Alex and Tyler Morgan live there, that those are Matt's roommates. Here Grafing admits that Matt wasn't the target and they were going for Alex Morgan because he was the big cocaine dealer. Here the investigator asks, who mentioned the target? Well, it was Tony. And that's what he was going for, was Alex. I mean, Chase, all of them, that's what they all wanted, was Alex. Well, I think they all knew that they were selling a lot of cocaine, and Matt happened to be their roommate, and that was the way for them to get inside and find out a layout of the house. You know, the more I look at what Grafing said in this statement to the police, it's all over the place, but right here made me think that, you know, Grafing says that, right here it says he speculates, I'm pretty sure they were into everything. Same thing with Matt. Yeah, he was moving everything too. So why is it when the investigators first asked Grafing about it, he says, well, I bought pot from Matt a couple of times. That was, oh, I bought cocaine, to now it's, I'm pretty sure he was into everything. I don't trust this guy. Well, according to Grafing, he says that it was Tony and Chase that planned this from the beginning. They were the ones that originally came up with the idea. I guess that's what he's speculating. Maybe there was some talk with Tony and Vogel about it. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, that's who Grafing points the finger at. Investigators push Tyler again and ask if Matt was the target, and Tyler Grafing says no. So here you can see a couple other interesting things. Right here, this is Mr. Hunt, this is the investigator, asking Grafing, Alex is Bryce Mattis, so this Alex Morgan is Bryce Mattis, is going by a different name. Grafing says, yes, and asks, did you buy it? So we know that Mr. Hunt, the investigator, already knew that Alex Morgan is Bryce Mattis. I guess they went by two different names. So somebody else has already been talking to this investigator. And anyway, so down here we know, so the conversation was prior to the 2nd of March, did not involve other people. Yes, that's who they were. They weren't going for Matt. They were going to rob Alex mainly. Right there. So Matthew was not the target, and these scumbags frickin' killed him. This is the actual affidavit for arrest warrant for Anthony Davila. This is all online. This is public information. Anybody can get it. This affidavit is given to a judge, and then the judge issues the arrest warrant. And so we're going to go down and we're going to take a look and see what some of the key points are that I found here just pertaining to this. And this is about on March 23rd, 2021, a sworn statement from Alice Connor during which she acknowledges being part of a conversation with Rachel Hall. Rachel Hall is David Foreman-Taylor's girlfriend. Anyway, a week prior to the March 3rd homicide of Matthew Nicol, during this conversation, Rachel disclosed to her that her boyfriend and Brian Vogel were going to practice for a stick, identified as a robbery. She also provided that, which was obtained during March 18th at a birthday party for this Natalie Benyon. During the gathering, a female by the name of Skylar Mackey revealed the following subjects were involved in the homicide of Matthew Nicol, and she gave up David Foreman-Taylor, Anthony Davila, Cory Cabaniss, Chase Harrison, and Brian Vogel. She also went on to bring up some stuff that the subjects used a U-Haul, they tinted the windows, Davila brought a hammer, left it at the scene after Matthew was shot accidentally by Cory Cabaniss while trying to sling his firearm over his back. The above information was told to Miss O'Connor, Miss Benyon, and Dalton Gonzalez, which also provided sworn statements. Miss Mackey reportedly revealed she heard this directly from Rachel Hall. Okay, so that's just hearsay, what she's saying. She heard it from him. But then on March 26, 2021, an interview with Skylar, she denies it, denies having the conversation with those subjects, and further denies having the conversation from Rachel Hall about giving her that information. But what's funny is, if you go down here, now by May 4th, when David, what's his name, Foreman-Taylor was arrested, they were interviewing Rachel Hall, his girlfriend. During the interview, Rachel Hall confirms being aware of the plan to conduct the home robbery. So that was what the O'Connor girl had said that Skylar Mackey had told her. So that was true. After what she learned following conversation she had with David that on March 3rd, that after the shooting death of Matthew Nicol, told her that the robbery went wrong and Matthew Nicol was shot. So Rachel Hall further admits to seeing a U-Haul at her mother's residence and assisting her boyfriend David with the cleaning of the vehicle and removing fingerprints. That's tampering with evidence. And then they also followed Brian Vogel back to drop the U-Haul back at the mall. So before she was lying, but by May 4th, the shit hit the fan. And she was coming off of that, any evidence at all to save her ass. During the course of her interview, Rachel also corroborated having conversation with Skylar Mackey. And so she's calling out Skylar Mackey about the March 3rd homicide. During this conversation, she acknowledged telling Skylar about the homicide. This conversation was further confirmed by David Emerson Foreman-Taylor. This Rachel Hall, she told her friend Skylar. Skylar told some other people. The other people gave them up in sworn statements. And then Rachel Hall and Skylar Mackey denied it. But then they actually, Rachel Hall came clean. And so, Skylar Mackey, you're in deep shit. But anyway, let's go back to this other stuff, and then here's on May 4th, 2021, David Emerson Foreman-Taylor, where he provided a detailed confession to his involvement in the homicide of Matthew Nicol. He admits to being present and participating in a conversation with the following subjects, Harrison, Davila, Vogel, Cabaniss, and robbing the residence. And the reason why he's going to get 10% of the cash profits from the proceeds of the robbery. And this happened, the main purpose was to eliminate competing drug distributors, and that he was going to get some money for it. What a piece of shit. Anyway, it also says that on March 2nd, the night before the robbery, Chase Harrison told the above involved to make sure they left their phones and not to take them with them during the robbery. Yeah, this is pretty well planned out, and that evidence right there, that's going to bury Chase. He was one of the lead planners involved in this, but I hope they all get life. They don't get the death penalty.
So what's frustrating is how this story came together. There's no real chronological events. Dates and times are kind of thrown all over there. But this one, this is Cory Cabaniss' affidavit for arrest warrant. This is kind of a chronological list. And I had never heard Tyler Grafing's name before till I saw this Cory Cabaniss affidavit for arrest warrant. So let's take a look at it. We remember that some of this stuff is the same as Davila's, and that's pretty much what it is. And the state's attorney or sheriff's department, they add information as it comes to, subsequently adding and building a bigger and better case. The judge signs the affidavit for arrest warrant, then the sheriff goes out and arrests them. So we see this David Foreman-Taylor on May 4, 2021. Remember that he provided the detailed confession. And here's also on May 4th, this is where Rachel Hall, David's girlfriend, admitted to everything before she had lied, but now she's come clean. But then we go here, and this is on May 4th, 2021, David Emerson, right here, where it says, David Foreman-Taylor also disclosed and confirmed the above-mentioned black Cadillac Escalade was involved with the plan to rob the place, the occupants of Hall Road. He further confirmed the black Escalade was operated by Tyler Grafing, and Grafing drove the Escalade to Merritt Island as he followed the U-Haul van and remained close to the scene of the homicide. Tyler Grafing also followed the van back to 1207 Willow Lane immediately after the homicide. And Tyler's purpose was to act as a lookout for law enforcement and communicate by walkie-talkie if he saw law enforcement. And on May 11th, now remember that was May 4th to May 11th, so that's what, 7 days later, a week later, they picked up Tyler Grafing, and in an interview with him, he further corroborated the statement provided by David Foreman-Taylor. So in other words, by May 11th, Tyler Grafing was giving it all up. So and he followed the subjects and took part on the home invasion robbery that turned out to be a murder. Grafing further admitted to being present during the planning phase of the home invasion robbery, which began back in December of 2020. In other words, they didn't just say, hey, come on, let's go. I want you to drive this truck and park down the street. He knew exactly what was going to happen. They were going to rob Matthew and probably kill Mako the dog before they set foot on the property. He revealed that Anthony Davila asked him to purchase drugs from Matthew in order to become familiar with the layout of the residence. So Tyler admits going to Matthew's house, purchasing pot or marijuana, and then drawing a map or becoming familiar with it. Grafing acknowledged being friends with Matthew Nicol and purchasing it for him on multiple occasions. That's so he could draw a better map of the place. Grafing also stated that on March 2nd that they met at, I guess this is Vogel and Foreman's house the night before of the robbery, and they planned it out and stuff. They reviewed it and they rehearsed. It was the final rehearsal, meaning they rehearsed many times for this. And so then the morning of it, Grafing saw Anthony Davila, Chase Harrison dressed up in dark clothes with DEA insignias. He indicated Chase Harrison and Anthony Davila both had Glock handguns in their possession. The three remaining subjects, David Foreman-Taylor, Cory Cabaniss, and Brian Vogel, dressed in similar style clothing with sheriff's insignias and helmets. The three subjects all possessed AR-15 assault-type rifles. He added that Brian Vogel's firearm had a suppressor attached or fixed. And then Grafing goes on to say that he followed the van to the area Hall Road. He admitted taken to a position in the area of the Hall Road at a gas station. That would be the Circle K. Grafing remained there at the location until he heard Chase Harrison tell him to move. Tyler Grafing learned from Anthony Davila later that there had been complications during the robbery, and Cory Cabaniss shot Matthew Nicol accidentally. And he also learned that Anthony Davila said that he used a hammer to make entry to the home, and Brian Vogel shot Mako, Matthew's dog. And what was he going to get out of it? Well, Grafing said that he was to get $10,000 for his actions, but he got nothing. Anyway, I just wanted to include this. This is the first time that I heard about Tyler Grafing, and I went ballistic because we're talking, this is back in May 11th of 2021, and it took over a year for them to arrest him? What the hell?
So they go to the house thinking they're going to rob it of money. Did they get any? Nope, no money. Instead, they just left a wake of horror. The horror they left behind was the victim and his dog. Pictured here is Matthew Nicols' dog Mako and Matthew. Both murdered for what these scumbags trying to rip him off or his roommates off, whatever. They didn't pick up a phone upon leaving and call the police and say, hey, there's a man that's been shot, hang up the phone and leave, or leave it off the hook, whatever. They didn't do that. They didn't think like that. They are only thinking about themselves and, oh my gosh, let's leave so we're not going to get caught. These narcissists deserve to spend the rest of their life behind bars. I hope they do, and they have to worry and think about and look over their shoulder every single day for the rest of their life. The Brevard County Clerk of the Court has a wealth of information, and it's all free and public information for you to look up yourself.
After looking up each and every one of them, I found out that these are all capital murder crimes. While digging around for information, I looked up Davila and I did find this. It's a prison release reoffender form. So I went to the FDLE website and I found that he was arrested and he did prison time back in 2018. Now he's been arrested for a capital murder. It seems that he'll spend the rest of his life in prison. As soon as this story broke, I went to the clerk of the court and I would find out as they got arrested. I would download as many files as I could. And you know, the affidavit for arrest warrant is pretty much what showed everything. Some of them are sealed now, but I have the ones that aren't sealed. There was no way in hell I would make that stuff possibly publicly accessible until after they're prosecuted, because I don't want to damage the state's attorney's case against these guys. But Brian Vogel and Chase Harrison, their records, a lot of them are sealed. And the reason why is they're probably dropping dimes as fast as they can to save their stupid asses. You see, these two idiots were already in jail and under arrest for trafficking cocaine throughout Brevard under the RICO Act. The RICO Act is for running a criminal enterprise. And anyway, now they've been charged with capital murder. Capital murder, that is. That carries life in prison or up to the death penalty. Between the murder and trafficking cocaine charges, these guys will never get out of prison. So I've heard that two of the people have been sentenced, and that would be Taylor and Grafing. In terms of the rest of these guys, Brian Vogel, you had a silencer on your gun, and you knew you were going to kill Mako before you set foot on that property. I have no respect for you. I never will. I hope you get everything and more that you deserve. I hope you get life. Cory Cabaniss, I hope you get life. You shot and killed Matthew. You do the crime. You do the time. In terms of Harrison and Davila, I think you guys should get multiple life terms for getting this group together and murdering Matthew. I hope you guys worry for the rest of your miserable lives. Holy crap, this shit stain's been sentenced, and you're not gonna fucking believe it. Unbelievable. You get wrapped up in a murder, you drop all the dimes that you can to save your stupid ass, and let's take a look and see what he got. So, digging around at the clerk of the court, here we go again. Here's Tyler Grafing's plea agreement dated, May 17th of 22 last year. He got out with 3 years in prison and 10 years of probation. Wow, you get involved with a murder, you're not even charged with it because he parked down the street. But anyway, that's what he got. 3 years in prison. Good job on the defense attorney, but what a fucking slap on the wrist that is. So this shit stain, David Foreman-Taylor, has been sentenced. I hope to God he got more time than this Tyler fucking Grafing. What an absolute travesty of justice that was, but oh well, let's see what they settled for. So this is David Foreman-Taylor's judgment, what happened with him. On count 1 was for second-degree murder with a firearm. Number 2 was a armed burglary and dwelling that inflicted death or bodily harm. And 3 is cruelty to animals. And let's see what he's got. There's his fingerprints. And so for count 1, this is the murder charge. He's going to go to prison, and he's going to have to take DNA samples, and he's going to prison for 15 years.
and followed by 15 years of probation. Count 2, sort of the same thing, 15 years in prison, 15 years of probation. And to be in prison, check one of our inapplicable. So he's going to jail for 365 days. So that's 31 years. But if you read down here, for the firearm, it's further ordered that the 10-year minimum mandatory prison provisions section of this is hereby imposed. So it means he can't get out less than 10 years. That's a minimum. He's going to get 6 days as credit for the time that he's been serving. And the firearm, he's going to do a 10-year minimum for that. But if you go down, somewhere I saw that these are going to be served concurrently. And concurrently means that they're going to be stacked. Here, a sentence shall run concurrent with any active sentence in all counts in this judgment. So this just means that he's going to do a minimum of 10 years and a maximum of 15 years for that. That little fucking piece of shit, he got lucky too. He should have been doing 25 fucking years. This is ridiculous. Well, 2 of these shit stains have been sentenced, 4 of them have not. I'll make another video about what they get, and I hope they get frickin' life. Lastly, let's not forget about Matthew. Sometimes the victim gets lost in the story because there's so much going on, but I'm not going to forget about him. I didn't know him, but my heartfelt sympathy go out to the Nicol family, especially his parents, but also his friends as well. As the news stories broke, I'd go down to the comments section, and people were commenting about how nice Matt was, how funny it was, how charismatic, how well loved he was, and they loved his dog Mako. And the sad reality is that Matthew's gone. Matthew's gone forever. He'll never be able to hug his mother or father or give his mom a kiss on the cheek, be able to go over for holidays and birthdays, whatever. Matthew is gone forever.